What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So today's video is going to be pretty exciting. As you can tell by the title, we're going to be putting 30-inch tires on the OffRoad Mini Quad. So this past weekend, I ended up taking the quad out with the $100 mini bike and just kind of had a fun weekend with the boys. Didn't really film anything. Had some fun with the toys as well. Pretty much didn't really break anything at all. I kind of just really smoked the belt on the orange quad after getting it stuck in some mud and getting some water on it. So other than that, everything kind of held up for the most part. But after being out there and seeing all the side-by-sides and big quads with the big wheels and tires, and then my buddy actually picking up a quad himself that you might see in the background. He's actually just storing here in the meantime, but that thing's got big 27-inch tires. So kind of scrolled around on Facebook Marketplace and ended up finding these 30-inch wheels and tires for sale and had to pick them up. And hopefully they should be the same lug pattern as the orange quad. From what I looked up, they should be the same, but these things are just massive. I picked these things up for a smoking deal and they got a lot of tread left. They are ITP, Mudlight XXL, 30 by 12 by 12. So these things are gonna jack this thing up a ton. That's kind of the whole goal with this thing, since this thing does have the 6.5 horsepower swapped into it that I did before with the torque converter. Once the torque converter gets wet, it kind of just doesn't really move anywhere and just kind of smokes the belt. So the whole idea is just kind of get this thing jacked up as high as possible. And I'm really hoping with these big wheels and tires that this thing might possibly just float on water. So that might be kind of something to come up with. But I'm kind of hoping, since this thing is super light and I'm not really the biggest guy either, so I'm thinking with these big wheels and tires it should have enough to kind of lift this thing up. But if anything, it'll at least give us a couple extra inches, since I only have 20-inch 22s on the front. So going up to 30s, it instantly gives me already that 4-inch raise up. So try to jack this thing up as high as possible so we can at least have a little bit more fun with it. And at the same time, we're going to start waterproofing a few things. Like I want to get the cover on the belt here, but I have it sitting right here. I just got to trim out a little bit more for the belt itself, since I kind of got this all in a weird kind of setup from how it's normally set up out of the box. And then I also like to kind of figure out something for the air filter here. It's in a good spot, being kind of high up above the motor and all that, but it is pretty open to the elements, especially with water kicking up from the wheels and stuff. It likes to get pretty damn close to the air filter. You can see there's already a little bit of mud in the filter itself. So I want to try to waterproof this thing as best as possible and just kind of make this thing a fun little bogger. I'm not really trying to build this thing to go 20 or 30 anymore. I really just wanted to go like 10, 15 miles per hour and just have some fun through trails, going through mud, and just bog deep with this thing. So let's see what happens. I think I'm gonna start working on actually getting the wheels to fit up here. They are the same lug pattern, but from what I'm looking at, the center section, like where the center kind of hub center cap would be right here, is a little bit different on the quad itself. So I'm gonna have to figure out that. They might just bolt right on, but they might be a little bit tricky, so I kind of gotta play around with them, see what I can do. I'm really just hoping they just kind of bolt right up and we can just kind of ride around, see how it does. But you never know, nothing's ever that easy. So let's get to work. I think I'm gonna start on the rear end, get those all knocked out, and then start on the front end, just get these things bolted up there and see this thing up on some 30s. All right, before I actually go mounting these wheels onto the off-road mini quad, I just want to show you guys a little comparison of the wheel next to the quad, because these things are massive. They're about as big as the quad itself. So it's definitely gonna be something, and these bearings are gonna hate their life. I already know, so don't tell me in the comments. I know the bearings are gonna hate it, but it is what it is. A couple bearings ain't gonna be hard to replace in the end. But check this out. This thing looks insane with that wheel next to it. Like, that's the stock wheel hiding right behind it. These are the 30s. Like, holy cow, that's gonna be a good little upgrade. I'm really curious how this motor likes these wheels, but I guess there's only one way to find out, and just to kind of see what happens. So it's actually the next day. Last night I got to work on actually mounting up the 30s on the OffRoad Mini Quad, and it's right behind this camera here, and this thing looks insane, which I'm going to show you guys here in a minute. But after that, I ended up having some buddies come over and kind of just hang out for the night, and didn't really work on anything at that point, didn't film anything, of course, and just kind of hung out staring at this thing because this thing is insane. Haven't really drove it at all, kind of just moved it back and forth a little bit, make sure all the wheels are kind of in line, because the holes in the wheels are meant for M12 stud and I only have M10 studs on this little quad. So I had to kind of just get them as center as possible and tighten them up, which I got them pretty center for the most part, which I'm pretty happy about. So it's finally time to show you guys this masterpiece or whatever contraption and just get you guys' opinion on it. But here's the off-road mini quad on 30-inch tires. So as you guys can tell, this thing is insane looking with the 30-inch wheels and tires. They bolted up, so I ain't complaining. They work for right now. I'm just really curious on how all this kind of suspension is gonna handle it, especially the main kind of hubs and these main ball joints for the knuckles, because they already seem a little small for kind of what it is, especially compared to a 30-inch tire. I really think I'm gonna probably end up bending a tie rod or snapping one of those just because of the turning force on these things. You're really just gonna have to turn this thing slow because you don't want to kind of have that force kind of angling on it or whatever. But other than that, you guys might notice I have the front wheels kind of inverted, flipped around, so it kind of gives me a little bit more foot room right here, because just putting my foot right here, you can kind of tell how you would hit either the back tire or the front tire, especially when you're turning. Like even still, you're still gonna hit your foot with it turning, like, and that's not all the way. So that's gonna be fun. I think I'm gonna pick up some 2-inch wheel spacers for the back, just to kind of get it to poke out a little bit more and kind of equal up the front. Let me kind of straighten this back out. But yeah, kind of equal out the front a little bit more and then give you a little bit more leg room with your feet right there. But other than that, I'm kind of curious how this whole motor setup's gonna kind of handle these big wheels and tires. I really think we're gonna have to change the rear gear in the back, since it only has a 45 right now. We might need to up it to like a 60 or even something bigger, just to kind of get a little bit more low end torque to get these wheels and tires moving, especially if we get stuck in some mud and stuff. I don't want to just be sitting here slipping the belt the whole time. We definitely still need to get the belt swapped out of there, so I got a fresh belt somewhere around the shop here, and I also got the cover for it. Oh, there's the belt, but got the cover there for it, so I want to get that bolted on there so we can kind of cover up the belt as much as possible, keep a little bit of water out of there. Luckily, we should be able to go through this much water, so it's probably a good 1.5 feet or so, and that should be more than enough to really get this thing anywhere I want to. And I do want to still maybe build up a little airbox for this thing. I have a pretty cool idea on actually an airbox for it out of like an old gas tank or something. I'm just curious if it's actually going to look right on this thing, but we will see. Other than that, I want to just get this thing all wrapped up, get the new belt and cover on there, maybe build up a little airbox because we have a hurricane coming. This actually should be coming by at least tomorrow because I'm in South Florida. So hopefully get some floodwaters around here and I can actually take this thing out and test it and see if it floats, because that's kind of the main goal behind it. See if this thing will actually float and just kind of bog deep with it as much as possible. I need a little toy to actually go deep in the mud and have a little bit more fun than just kind of ride around the streets and stuff with the mini bikes, or even just like the drift quad. And then we're gonna have the drag quad soon. So other than that, let's get to work on it. Let's get this thing all wrapped up, and I would love to go take this thing out, maybe rip it around a little bit, see how it does. And I'm actually curious on actually the top speed with it right now with this whole gearing setup and these big wheels and tires. All right, so I just got the belt knocked out on the off-road quad, got the cover all knocked out as well, had to trim that up a good bit. So I think I'm gonna start working on the airbox here. Got some mounts right on the front of the frame here, so I'm thinking some sort of little kind of box that kind of sits right up on the top of the frame, and the air filter can kind of just come up into it. Maybe have like a little half circle just so the tube can kind of sit right up in it. Kind of be a little bit easier once I actually make it and able to show you. So let me get working on that, get that all knocked out, and then this thing should be pretty much all ready to roll. What's up, guys? So it's actually the next day. Last night I started working on the airbox and basically got it all finished up today. And it's pretty simple for the most part, just a kind of a square box with a couple mounts coming off, and I kind of got it angling out to kind of match the size of the frame. I can kind of mock it up real quick for you. It just kind of fits right in there. Got some little tabs bolted right to the frame there, and it sits right tight up to the top of the frame. So pretty happy how it came out. Took me like 3 or 4 hours. I was gonna time lapse it, but I already know it's just too much to really film. So now we just got to start working on actually getting the air filter inside the box here. So I'm going to 3D print another one of these little adapters I have in between the air filter and the snorkel tube here. Just kind of one of those with a little bit more of a lip in between here, so then I can kind of just drill my hole in the box, have that piece sit in here and glue it in so the air filter and that little adapter will stay with the box. And then you kind of just disconnect the snorkel tube from the box if you ever need to kind of access anything or work on it. So just kind of make it a little bit better. So once that all finishes up on the 3D printer, we can start working on that, get that all glued up. So I think I'm gonna drill my hole out now so that I can kind of get an idea of where it's all gonna sit. And then I got my new snorkel tube here that's a little bit longer. Get that chopped down to size, get it taped up in black, make it look a little bit better, and just get this thing all wrapped up, and then we can go bogging. So I just got the Airbox all mounted up for its final kind of time for right now at least. I think later on I'm at least gonna paint it, or I picked up some Flex Seal, maybe Flex Seal kind of the whole inside and outside of the box. Make sure it's 100% waterproof, even though the top's gonna be open. Once I actually drop this gas tank down, because that's kind of my whole plan, drop the gas tank down, get kind of rid of this gap, and it'll kind of close it up a good bit, and then it'll just be kind of a couple little holes on the top that the air filter actually be able to breathe through. But other than that, I'm stoked about how this box came out. It literally matched the frame perfectly as it's mounted, and it used some factory spots too. So now, finally time to test this thing out, see how it actually drives with the 30-inch wheels and tires. I might have to tune up the carb a little bit with having a longer snorkel tube on there and just kind of different placement of everything. But other than that, just kind of feel how these big 30s are on these little frame, especially how the suspension's actually going to take it, and kind of just go from there. So before we actually go take this big contraption out, I just want to say it is kind of raining and just really windy, so the wind noise might be a little shoddy, and there's no really flood waters to actually go test this thing and see what it does in some mud and actually some water. So eventually we'll actually take this thing out to like a local spot and go test it and see what it can actually do in some mud and stuff. But other than that, I'm tired of talking. Let's finally have some fun with this thing and see what it could do. So sadly enough, it ended up pretty much downpouring, and now it is pitch black outside, so it is not really worth even taking out the OffRoad Mini Quad on 30s to really see how it does. I kind of just want to hold that off till we have a little bit more sunlight outside, and I can actually film it for you guys as well. But this thing is looking sweet. I'm pretty stoked about how everything came out today. So far, I think I'm gonna order up some new wheel spacers, since I ended up inverting the front wheels, kind of flipping them around, getting them to poke out a little bit more to give me a little more foot room down here. I think if I add another 2-inch wheel spacer on the back, it should give me a little bit more foot room as well, so that should be good there. And I think I might order up a new rear sprocket too, since this thing only has a 45 on it. I might try to look in to see if they have like a 60 or like 72, something like that, sprocket for the back, just to get a little bit more low end, since I'm not really trying to build this thing to go fast anymore. I'm trying to just build it to go 10 to 15 miles per hour, get that low end torque, all we really need, and nothing really too crazy. But I'm pretty stoked about how everything came out today. The wheels bolted up, so that was pretty good there, since I kind of made a good judgment on the wheel lug pattern. I wasn't really too sure, but we got the new belt slapped on there, so that should be a lot better, especially after smoking the old one that was on there. Got the cover on there, so it protect it from a little bit of water as well. And then we also got the whole new Airbox all set up with the longer snorkel tube. And this Airbox is way nicer. It definitely has a little bit more intake noise. And then once we actually drop that gas tank down a little bit, it should make it just look a lot more cleaner. I think I'm gonna paint that up in the future, just probably off camera. I have a little bit of Flex Seal I kind of bought, so I might try some Flex Seal on that and kind of see how that does. I've never played with it before. But other than that, pretty stoked about how this thing came out. This thing is pretty much almost 100% ready to go Boggin. We just need those couple little parts to get this thing 100%, get the gearing figured out 100%, and just kind of go from there. Other than that, I really wish I could actually take this thing out and rip it around for you guys to see how this thing goes and rolls with the 30-inch wheels and tires. So I know a lot of y'all are probably gonna be pissed at me for not actually taking this thing out and seeing how it does with big wheels and tires, but that's just kind of the name of the game. I can't choose the weather around here, so it is what it is. So soon enough, hopefully I'm gonna try to get something figured out this weekend, and maybe on Monday we'll have a video come out actually ripping this thing around and seeing what it can do. But I'm gonna try to work and see what I can do. But other than that, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, hope you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more content, and peace out.